You asked about transgenderism.
I did.
I didn't persuade you on that.
No, not really.
When did you start to identify as a woman?
What makes you say that I identify as a woman? Because I actually didn't assert that.
I don't know.
Is it just pattern recognition?
Oh, we just got a real life non-meme did you just assume my pronouns moment. And Knowles is actually tripping up on it.
Is it just pattern recognition? Do I just look like one of the transes?
You're wearing a dress.
Yeah.
My first hint.
Yeah. Have you heard of a femboy? Do you know what that means?
Now I have, but I don't know what it means.
Okay. It's feminine men. They wear a lot of dresses. It's cool.
But
I'm not a femboy. I identify as a trans woman.
Okay. So I was right.
Yeah.
Okay.
You were correct.
But a femboy is different than a trans.
Yes, they are. They're quite different.
What's the difference?
So a femboy still retains their male identity and pursues femininity, whereas a trans woman actually identifies as a woman.
What does that mean, though? If you if I pursue Sicilian identity, then I would identify as Sicilian.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
But then, if a femboy,
yeah, but like, Michael, if you put on a dress, please never do that, by the way. But if you put on a dress, then would that make you a woman? No, of course not. So clearly, if there's a femboy, someone who is a boy, a man, who also enjoys feminine clothing, just putting on feminine clothing doesn't actually mean they're not a man anymore, right? It ultimately is all going to come down to the individual's self-perception, their self-identity.
pursues feminine identity, he would identify as female.
He would identify as feminine, not necessarily female. I think you and everyone at the Daily Wire would agree that feminine and female are not synonymous.
Well, men can be effeminate.
Yeah,
actually,
effeminate.
but that's different than feminine.
Feminine. How would you define feminine versus effeminate?
Feminine is good, and it's what women are when they act like women, and effeminate is bad, and it's what men are when they act like women.
So yeah, we could say a femboy is a.
What? What is this fucking trash definition? Femininity is good. It's when women act like women, and it's good. That's your what? Calm down, Aesop's fables over here. What the fuck?
A boy who's effeminate. Well, then a trans woman actually doesn't retain the male identity and chooses to identify as a female.
Okay, but then to loop back around to my first question, when did you start to identify as transgender?
Started to identify as transgender. Internally, I've noticed the sort of mismatch between my identity and the body that I was given and the roles that society has placed upon me. That mismatch was pretty clear from a very young age. I'm not going to pretend that I was a woman all along. You know, I was born with a female brain. But I'd say probably since around 4K, you know, like school.
4K?
Like 4-year-old kindergarten, like preschool.
Okay. What do you think caused it? If you say you weren't, you know, it's not like you were born in the wrong body or something, then what do you think caused it?
I think it's quite simple, really. I think some people like ketchup and some people don't. You know, I wanted to live my life this way. I wanted to pursue these characteristics, these traits.
No, I'm not denying that you want or
that I want to,
but I'm just kind of asking why.
Yeah, I mean, I think the same reason why anybody identifies as the gender they were assigned at birth. Well, it just feels kind of natural.
When did you publicly start doing it?
I'd say I came out as trans to everyone except for my family members, because it wasn't safe in my household.
Where it wasn't safe.
Why wasn't it safe?
Yeah.
I don't want to get into the grotesque.
Yeah, damn, Michael Knowles. Okay. He's like asking this person to just trauma dump. He's like, so why wasn't it safe? When did you notice you were trans? What do you think caused your transness? Like, jeez. I mean, I know it's Michael Knowles. Like, he doesn't really know anything, so he's trying to find some answers. I get it, but like, some of these questions, man.
Details, but I was in a pretty abusive household. My father was not very accepting, but my mother.
Do you think maybe that might have had anything to do with?
Oh no.
You know, all
no, the abuse and whatnot didn't really. I don't see any correlation with that in my gender identity. I could see the look on your face
because I've just heard
the talking point.
I've heard it's not just. I mean, I've just heard it from people who have detransitioned, or you know, that sometimes that correlates.
Yeah, I don't like. You know, trust me, I'm not proud to say that I grew up in an abusive household and I also happen to be trans. I don't want to fuel that statistic, but I'm also not going to be dishonest about my upbringing.
Yeah. Now you are not trans.
I am.
You're just
trans.
You're trans too?
Mm-hmm.
No, you're not.
I am.
Oh shit.
So what are you?
I'm non-binary.
Oh, all right. I don't mean to be different, but you're not saying you're a man.
I'm not saying I'm a man now.
And you would have at some point in your life said you're a woman.
I don't think I ever said I was a woman.
A little girl. I don't know.
Sure, yeah.
You did. Okay. But then when did you decide you're non-binary?
I didn't know what transgender or non-binary was until I was 14, 15.
Most people had not heard of it until recently.
I mean, it existed, but I hadn't heard of it.
I suppose we'll perhaps agree to disagree on that.
You don't think it existed until recently?
Knowles doesn't think non-binary people existed?
No, I think people have been confused about their sex, and I think they've had all sorts of aberrant desires for all of history. But I don't think it's a real category, basically. So I don't mean it in any disrespectful way. I just don't think, I don't think it's.
I don't mean it in any disrespectful way. I just mean that it's not an authentic form of identity, and it most likely was caused from a bunch of abuse you endured as a child. But I'm not saying it is anything disrespectful, you know? Just that your identity, your perception of yourself is wrong.
To have a male body but be a female, because I don't think that's how body and soul or how identity actually works.
So I think what we're saying is that transgenderism, let's just say as an ideology, has existed for a very, very long time.
Yeah.
The first books that were burned in the Holocaust were about transgender people, about sexual studies.
Well, yeah, there was all sorts of sort of sexual, and it goes back obviously much further than the 1940s. People had these desires.
Much,
But it is,
yes.
I suppose the difference would be that transvestitism has existed for all of history. There've always been sort of, cabarets and red light districts and things like that. But the ideology, meaning the view that a man could say he really is a woman, or a woman could say she really is multiple, they or them, or not either a man or a woman, that's a relatively new ideology.
No.
Not the behavior,
actually.
but
We have, looking back, I mean, obviously historical records going back thousands of years get kind of shaky just because, we aren't able to preserve text that long, and maybe text even didn't exist, but
they did
we
exist.
have-
We actually
not,
have,
not for all of human history.
There's historical analysis of non-binary people. 18th century example of gender nonconformity. A French spy, diplomat, and soldier. They lived the early part of their life as a man and in later years lived as a woman. Yeah, I mean, there are just various different examples of non-binary people and trans people throughout history.
Well, thousands of years, yeah, but not like.
Oh, not going back to
Yeah, we can-
Adam in the
yeah.
garden. That's probably true.
But there's evidence of people with assigned male skeletons in traditionally female clothing and attire in burial, and we have the same vice
Where?
versa. People, this is one of the specific.
Notice how he's asking for these hyper specifics that he never actually gives to other people. Really, really weird, right? Like, he never is very specific with his arguments, but now when someone else is arguing, suddenly he's like, can you please give me a specific example?
Examples I'm thinking of was Norse. There was
She
a
knows it.
female skeleton that was buried with traditionally male burial rites and clothing.
How did
So
they-
Oh, she even knew the example. Damn.
How do they know the skeleton's female?
well, I said female because obviously I believe that gender is something social rather than just biological, but
But the scientists
Oh,
were
he thinks he got a gotcha there. Listen to Knowles, dude. He's such a fucking retard. He actually thought that was a gotcha. Yeah, dude, there are biological differences. Male and female are different. Man and woman refer to gender, social categories. This is separate from biology. Although we socially correlate them with biology, they're not caused by biology. They're not intrinsic to biology. That's all that this is saying.
able to identify it by the skeleton.
We know that sex is unambiguous.
yeah,
I don't think we're denying that.
there's this odd idea among conservatives that transgender people don't understand that biological sex exists or that we're
Some
deluded.
don't. That we,
or that-
some don't. Some do. You obviously do, but some don't.
Yeah, some trans people have gender dysphoria, right? Because of the awareness that their gender identity is not aligning with the biology that society says they should be aligning with. Like, the gender dysphoria comes from the awareness that gender and sex are different, that their biology is different.